If you say one word, I'll break the other side. That's what Marcus Bellamy whispered to his 14-year-old daughter while she lay on the bathroom floor with 3 cracked ribs and blood on her teeth. He said it the way other fathers say goodnight. Quiet, close, like a secret between them. Cora didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next morning, when the doctor at the private clinic asked how she'd fallen down the stairs. Not the next year, when it happened again. Not for 10 years. Then she talked. And when Cora Bellamy finally opened her mouth, it wasn't to a therapist or a friend or a cop. It was to a courtroom. A packed courtroom. With cameras. With reporters. With her father sitting 12 feet away in a suit that cost more than most people's cars, smiling at her like she was still his little girl. But we'll get to that. First, you need to understand what kind of man Marcus Bellamy was. Not the kind the newspapers described. Philanthropist, tech founder, face of the Bellamy Foundation's annual Children's Charity Gala. No. The real kind. The kind that existed behind closed doors, behind NDAs, behind a wife too terrified to leave, and a daughter too broken to speak. It started when Cora was 11. "Daddy, I don't want to go." She stood in the doorway of his home office, wearing pajamas with little stars on them. A school trip to Washington, D.C., 3 days. Her best friend Maya was going. Everyone was going. Marcus didn't look up from his laptop. "You're not going." "But Mom said your mother doesn't make decisions in this house." His voice dropped. Not loud. Marcus was never loud. Loud men got caught. "Go to your room." "Please, I just want to—" He closed the laptop, stood up, walked toward her. Cora backed up until her shoulder blades hit the hallway wall. He leaned down, put his hand flat on the wall beside her head. His cologne was heavy. His breath smelled like the bourbon he drank every night from a crystal glass that nobody else was allowed to touch. "When I say no," he said, "what do you say?" "Okay, Daddy." "Good girl." He went back to his office, closed the door. Cora went to her room and stared at the ceiling until her eyes stopped burning. That was the beginning. The small nose. The way he controlled every movement. What she wore, who she spoke to, when she ate, how long she showered. Her mother, Diana, moved through the house like a ghost in designer clothes, taking pills that kept her face smooth and her voice even and her eyes empty. "Your father loves you," Diana said once, arranging flowers in the kitchen while Cora stood behind her with the questions she couldn't ask. "He just shows it differently." Differently. That was the word Diana used for everything. He shows love differently. He communicates differently. He handles stress differently. The first time he hit Cora, she was 13. She'd gotten a B on a math test. Marcus found it in her backpack. He checked her backpack every night, her phone every morning, her browser history before bed. "What is this?" He held the test between 2 fingers, like it was something dead. "I studied," Cora whispered. "I really did. The teacher said—" "The teacher." Marcus laughed. One sharp sound. "The teacher makes $45,000 a year. I make $45,000 before breakfast. And you're telling me that person's opinion matters more than mine?" "No, Daddy." "Then why did you embarrass me?" "I didn't—" The slap came fast. Open palm. The kind that doesn't leave a mark if you know what you're doing. and Marcus always knew what he was doing. Cora's head snapped sideways. Her ear rang. She tasted copper. "Go study," Marcus said. "And next time, don't make me correct you." She got an A on the next test, and the next, and every test after that, because the alternative was his hand. And the alternative after that was worse. Quick favor. If you've ever hidden pain behind perfect grades and a perfect smile because the person hurting you was the same person everyone else admired, tap like and subscribe. Because the night Cora turned 14, her father stopped using his hand and started using his fist. It was a Tuesday. Cora remembers the day because her mother was at a charity board meeting and the house was empty except for them. She'd made a mistake. A small one. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter instead of charging it in her room where Marcus could check it overnight. He found a text from a boy named Ethan, a classmate, nothing romantic, just homework questions about biology. "Who is Ethan?" "He's in my class. We have a project." "You're talking to boys." "It's about school. You're talking to boys behind my back." "Daddy, it's just—" He grabbed her by the hair, pulled her off the kitchen stool. She hit the tile floor on her side, and before she could understand what was happening, he kicked her. Not the way you kick a soccer ball, the way you kick a door you want open. Controlled, targeted. Twice in the ribs with his leather dress shoe, the one with the hard heel. She heard the crack before she felt it. Then she felt it. The pain was white. Absolute. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't scream. Her body curled around itself like paper in a flame. Marcus crouched beside her. He wasn't sweating. He wasn't breathing hard. He looked like a man who'd just adjusted a picture frame. "If you say one word, I'll break the other side." Cora lay on the tile, staring at the grout lines between the stones, each one perfectly even because Marcus hired people who made things perfect. And she understood something that no 14-year-old should ever have to understand. Nobody was coming. Nobody would help. Her mother was on pills. The housekeeper was afraid. The school thought she was happy. The world thought her father was a hero. She was alone. She said nothing. The clinic visit happened the next day. A private physician Marcus kept on retainer, Dr. Hendricks, a man who drove a car Marcus had paid for and whose medical practice operated out of a building Marcus owned. "Fell down the stairs," Marcus told the doctor, his hand resting on Cora's shoulder. Gentle, fatherly. Dr. Hendricks looked at the X-ray. 3 cracked ribs on the left side. He looked at Cora. Her eyes were dry, her face blank. "These injuries are consistent with a fall," Dr. Hendricks said, writing in a chart that would never be filed with a hospital. "Of course they are," Marcus said. "She's clumsy. Gets it from her mother." He squeezed Cora's shoulder. She didn't flinch. She'd already learned that flinching made it worse. They drove home in Marcus's Bentley. The leather seats were cool. Classical music played through speakers that cost more than Dr. Hendricks's car. "You did well," Marcus said. "I'm proud of you." Proud. The word sat in her stomach like a stone. The years folded into each other after that. 15, 16, 17, 18. Each one measured not in birthdays, but in the distance between incidents. The weeks of calm where Marcus was charming, attentive, the father everyone wished they had, followed by the nights where the air in the house changed, and Cora knew from the way he set down his bourbon glass that something was coming. She got perfect grades, played violin, volunteered at the foundation, wore dresses her father approved, spoke only when spoken to at dinner parties where billionaires laughed and senators shook Marcus's hand, and nobody looked at the girl in the corner with the straight spine and the dead eyes and thought, something is wrong. Diana knew. Of course she knew. She knew the way people know things they can't afford to acknowledge, by rearranging reality until it fit a shape she could survive in. "Your father is under a lot of pressure," Diana would say, pouring wine at 2 p.m. "The company, the board, he carries so much." "He cracked my ribs, Mom." Diana's hand paused on the wine glass, a half second. Then she lifted it and drank. "You fell down the stairs, sweetheart. That's what happened." Cora stopped telling her mother the truth after that. You can only offer the truth so many times before the rejection of it becomes its own kind of violence. At 18, Cora left for college. Stanford. Marcus approved. The brand was acceptable. He paid the tuition, controlled the bank account, called every Sunday at exactly 7 p.m. and expected her to answer by the second ring. "How are your grades?" "All A's." "Any boys?" "No, Daddy." "Good girl." She hung up, walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower so her roommate couldn't hear, and cried until the water went cold. At 20, she took a psychology class. The professor, a woman named Dr. Anaya Sato, gave a lecture on coercive control. She put a list on the board: isolation, monitoring, financial control, threats, physical punishment, forced compliance, emotional withdrawal as punishment. Cora stared at the list. Every item was her childhood. She stayed after class, stood at the professor's desk with her hands shaking. "I think my father is on that list," she said. Dr. Sato looked at her, didn't flinch, didn't pity, just saw her. "Tell me," she said. And for the first time in 6 years, Cora talked. Not everything, not yet, but enough. The control, the isolation, the ribs, the doctor who filed no report, the mother who poured wine and called it a fall. Dr. Sato didn't call the police. She didn't make promises she couldn't keep. She said, "You need a therapist, a specific kind, one who specializes in survivors of parental abuse, and you need a lawyer." "I can't afford a lawyer. My father controls my money." "Then we find one who'll work for what matters, instead of what pays." Tap like if you believe that one person who actually listens can change someone's entire life. Because Dr. Sato introduced Cora to the woman who would eventually bring Marcus Bellamy to his knees. Her name was Jenna Okafor, 34, former public defender, current civil rights attorney with a small practice in San Francisco that specialized in domestic violence cases against high-net-worth abusers. Jenna didn't look like a weapon. She was 5'2", wore reading glasses, kept her hair in a bun, and had a laugh that made you forget she'd put 3 men in prison last year alone. They met in a coffee shop near campus. Cora was 21 by then. She'd been in therapy for a year. She could say the words now: abuse, assault, coercive control, without her throat closing. But saying them to a lawyer was different. A lawyer meant action. Action meant Marcus would find out. And Marcus finding out meant, "He'll destroy me," Cora said, staring at her untouched latte. "He'll try," Jenna said. "Tell me what he did." Cora talked for 2 hours. Jenna took notes in a legal pad with small, precise handwriting. She didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp. She'd heard worse. That was the horrifying part. She'd heard worse, and she was still fighting. When Cora finished, Jenna set down her pen. Here's what we need: medical records, any documentation of injuries, even from the private doctor, witnesses, household staff, teachers, anyone who saw something, financial records showing control, bank accounts, trust structures, anything that proves he used money as a weapon. And your mother. My mother won't talk. She might. People who've been controlled sometimes break free when they realize someone else already did. And if she doesn't? Then we go without her. Your testimony, your medical history, your therapist's documentation, it's enough to file. It's enough to start. He'll hire the best lawyers in the country. Jenna smiled. It was a small, sharp smile. I've beaten the best lawyers in the country. They're not as good as they think. They're just expensive. The next 2 years were the hardest of Cora's life. Harder than the ribs, harder than the silence. Because preparing a case against Marcus Bellamy meant reliving every moment she'd spent a decade burying. She cataloged it all. The incidents, dates, descriptions, injuries, the patterns, the bourbon glass, the tone shift, the way he'd apologize the next day, with a gift that was really a transaction. The witnesses, the housekeeper, Rosa Gutierrez, who'd heard the kick through the kitchen wall and quit the next day without explanation. The tutor, Mr. Abramson, who'd noticed bruises on Cora's arms and reported them to the school, only to be told by the headmaster that the Bellamy family had addressed the matter privately. The headmaster, who'd received a $500,000 donation from the Bellamy Foundation the following month. Jenna found Rosa in New Jersey. She'd been terrified for 7 years, convinced Marcus would find her. But when Jenna explained what Cora was doing, Rosa cried and said, I heard the sound. Through the wall. I heard a little girl's bones break, and I walked away. I've never forgiven myself. You can help now, Jenna said. I'll help, Rosa said. Whatever you need. I'll say it in court. I'll say it to God. They found Mr. Abramson. He'd kept his original report, the one the headmaster had buried. He had emails, too. Correspondence with the school administration documenting his concerns and their dismissal. A paper trail that proved the system had been told and the system had looked away. They found Dr. Hendricks. This was harder. The doctor was still on Marcus's payroll, still driving the car Marcus bought, still operating out of the building Marcus owned. He refused to cooperate. Jenna subpoenaed his records. The records had been altered. The X-rays from Cora's visit at 14 were missing. But Jenna had anticipated that. She'd already filed a motion with the medical board requesting the original imaging files from the radiology equipment manufacturer. Digital X-ray machines stored backups. Even when doctors deleted files, the machines remembered. The original images showed 3 cracked ribs with fracture patterns inconsistent with a fall. The forensic radiologist's report used the phrase, injuries consistent with direct blunt force trauma from a pointed object, such as the toe of a shoe. Marcus Bellamy had kicked his daughter so hard that the evidence was literally printed in her bones. And the bones didn't lie. The indictment came on a Wednesday morning. Marcus was at his desk in the glass tower of Bellamy Technologies, reviewing a quarterly earnings report, when 2 detectives entered his office without an appointment. Marcus Bellamy? He looked up. Annoyed, not afraid. Men like Marcus didn't get afraid of badges. They got afraid of headlines. You're under arrest for felony child abuse, assault causing bodily harm, and witness tampering. The detective set down the warrant. "You have the right to remain silent." Marcus laughed. One sound. Sharp. The same laugh Cora had heard 1,000 times. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir. That's why we're here." They cuffed him at his desk. The glass walls of his office meant every employee on the floor watched. 47 people saw Marcus Bellamy, the man who controlled everything, get walked out of his own building with his hands behind his back. His legal team mobilized within the hour. 4 attorneys from Morgan, Shaw, and Locke, the most expensive defense firm on the West Coast. They filed motions to suppress, motions to dismiss, motions to delay, motions to transfer. They challenged every piece of evidence, questioned every witness's credibility, and described Cora as a troubled young woman with a history of emotional instability seeking financial gain. Marcus posted bail, $2 million, paid from a trust account, and gave a press conference on the courthouse steps. "These allegations are fabricated," he said, his voice steady, his suit perfect, his smile calibrated to communicate wounded innocence. "My daughter is unwell. She needs help, not a courtroom. I love her. I've always loved her. And when the truth comes out, the world will see that a father's love is being weaponized by people who want to destroy a good man." The performance was flawless. Some people believed it. The kind of people who always believe men in expensive suits, because doubting them means doubting the architecture of the world they live in. But not everyone believed it. The trial began 4 months later. Courtroom 4B, Judge Rebecca Thornton. 12 jurors, packed gallery, reporters, advocates, the public, and, in the front row, Diana Bellamy in a black dress, sitting behind her husband, hands folded, face blank. Cora sat at the plaintiff's table beside Jenna. She wore a simple gray suit, no jewelry, no makeup. She looked like what she was, a 24-year-old woman who'd carried a secret for 10 years and was about to set it down in front of the world. Marcus sat 12 feet away. He smiled at her when she entered. The same smile. The one that said, "I own you. I made you. You belong to me." Cora looked at the smile, and for the first time in her life, she didn't look away. If you've ever watched someone finally face the monster that raised them, stay with me, because what Cora said on that witness stand made Marcus Bellamy's smile disappear. And it never came back. "State your name for the record." "Cora Bellamy." "Ms. Bellamy, can you describe the events of March 14th, 2016? Cora looked at the jury. 12 faces. Some sympathetic, some skeptical. All watching. "I was 14, she said. "My father found a text message on my phone from a boy in my class. It was about a biology project. My father grabbed me by the hair and pulled me off a kitchen stool. I hit the floor. Then he kicked me twice in the ribs." "Objection!" Marcus's attorney stood. "The witness is presenting uncorroborated allegations as overruled," Judge Thornton said. "The witness may continue." "I heard the crack," Cora said. Her voice was steady, flat. The voice of someone who'd practiced this in therapy 100 times. "I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dying. My father crouched beside me and said, 'If you say one word, I'll break the other side.'" The courtroom was silent. The next day, he took me to a private doctor, Dr. Hendricks. The doctor took x-rays. He saw 3 cracked ribs. My father told him I fell down the stairs. The doctor agreed. "And did you fall down the stairs?" "No. My father kicked me while I was on the floor." Marcus's attorney cross-examined for 90 minutes. He was aggressive, precise, expensive. He questioned Cora's memory. He questioned her motives. He suggested she was seeking attention, seeking money, seeking revenge against a father who'd given her every privilege. Ms. Bellamy, isn't it true that your father paid for your Stanford education? Yes. Isn't it true that he provided you with a car, a monthly allowance, and a trust fund? Yes. And you expect this jury to believe that a man who gave you everything also beat you? Cora looked at the attorney. Then she looked past him, at her father. He gave me everything except safety, she said. A trust fund doesn't fix broken ribs. A car doesn't undo the sound of your own bones cracking. And a Stanford education is what taught me the word for what he did to me. It's called abuse. And it happened in a house with marble floors and a Bentley in the driveway. And that doesn't make it less real. It makes it harder to see. The jury foreman's jaw tightened. 2 jurors in the back row shifted in their seats. Marcus's smile flickered, just once, like a light with a bad connection. Rosa testified next. She described the night she heard the kick through the kitchen wall. She described Marcus's voice, calm, controlled, terrifying. She described quitting the next day because she knew that if she stayed, she'd either have to report it or pretend she hadn't heard it, and she couldn't live with either choice. I left a child in that house, Rosa said, tears streaming. I left her there because I was afraid. And I've lived with that every single day. Mr. Abramson testified about the bruises, the report, the headmaster's dismissal, the donation that arrived like a silencer on a gun. The forensic radiologist testified about the x-rays. She projected the images on a screen. Cora's ribs at 14, the fracture lines sharp and clear. These injuries, the radiologist said, are not consistent with a fall. The fracture pattern indicates direct blunt force trauma from a focused impact point. In my professional opinion, these injuries were caused by a kick. She pointed to the screen. You can see here, the fracture originates at the anterior axillary line and propagates posteriorly. A fall would produce diffuse impact. This is focal, targeted. This is not an accident. Marcus's attorneys objected, argued, fought every sentence like it was a hill worth dying on. But the bones didn't lie, and the jury was listening. The defense called Marcus to the stand on the final day. His attorneys had rehearsed him for weeks, the tone, the pauses, the moments of emotion. He was to be a loving father, bewildered by his daughter's accusations, heartbroken by the betrayal. I have never raised a hand to my daughter, Marcus said, looking directly at the jury. Never. I was strict, yes. I had high expectations, but everything I did was out of love. Jenna cross-examined. Mr. Bellamy, you employ a private physician named Dr. Hendricks? He's been our family doctor for years. And Dr. Hendricks operates out of a building you own? I own many buildings. Do you also make payments on Dr. Hendricks's vehicle? Marcus paused. I may have helped him with a car at some point. A gesture of appreciation. A gesture? And the headmaster at your daughter's school, the one who received your report about bruises and took no action, he received a $500,000 donation from your foundation the following month. Also a gesture? The foundation makes many donations. Mr. Bellamy, your daughter testified that you kicked her while she was on the floor, that you cracked her ribs, that you threatened to break the other side if she spoke. Is she lying? Marcus straightened, adjusted his cuffs. Cora recognized the gesture. He always did that after. Like the violence was a wrinkle he could smooth out. "My daughter is confused," he said. "She's been influenced by people who want to—" "Yes or no, Mr. Bellamy? Did you kick your daughter on March 14th, 2016? No. Did you threaten her? No. Did you instruct Dr. Hendricks to record her injuries as a fall? Absolutely not." Jenna walked to the evidence table. She picked up a phone, Marcus's phone, seized during the investigation. She pressed play on an audio file. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom, clear, unmistakable. "Hendricks, it's Marcus. She fell down the stairs. That's what happened. That's what you write. If anyone asks, she's clumsy. We've discussed this before." The recording was from Marcus's voicemail archives, a backup his phone had automatically uploaded to a cloud server that his attorneys hadn't thought to scrub because they didn't know it existed. Marcus's face went white. "That's my client's private," the defense attorney started. "It's evidence obtained through a lawful subpoena of cloud storage records," Jenna said calmly. "Your Honor, the prosecution has authenticated the recording through voice analysis and metadata verification." Judge Thornton looked at Marcus. "The jury will consider the recording." Marcus sat on the witness stand and watched his own voice destroy the story he'd spent a lifetime constructing. The calm, controlled father, the philanthropist, the hero. All of it dissolving in the space between words he'd said into a phone 8 years ago, thinking no one would ever hear them. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty. All counts. The sound in the courtroom, when the verdict was read, wasn't cheering. It wasn't applause. It was exhaling. The collective release of held breath from people who'd been watching a man with unlimited resources try to convince the world that his daughter's broken bones were her own fault. Marcus stood motionless. His attorneys whispered in his ear. He didn't hear them. He was looking at Cora. She looked back, steady, dry-eyed. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just held his gaze the way she'd wanted to hold it when she was 14 and lying on a tile floor. Without fear. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. Marcus received 8 years. His assets were frozen pending civil proceedings. The Bellamy Foundation was dissolved after an audit revealed that 60% of its donations had gone to individuals and institutions connected to Marcus's personal network. People who owed him. People he controlled. People he'd paid to keep quiet. Dr. Hendricks lost his medical license. The headmaster resigned. The school issued a public apology that satisfied no one, but at least acknowledged what had happened. Diana filed for divorce the day after sentencing. She didn't attend the trial. She didn't testify. She didn't speak publicly. She simply filed papers and moved to a house in Connecticut that was smaller than her closet in the Bellamy mansion. Cora called her once. "Mom." Silence. Then, "I should have protected you." "Yes. I was afraid." "I know. Can you forgive me?" Cora was quiet for a long time. "I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try." It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't the kind of forgiveness that comes wrapped in music and soft lighting. It was the kind that comes with conditions and boundaries, and the understanding that love and failure can live in the same person. Cora moved to Portland after the trial. She rented an apartment with big windows and no marble floors. She adopted a dog, a mutt named Bones, because gallows humor was the only kind that worked anymore. She started a nonprofit called Still Talking, providing legal and therapeutic resources for adult survivors of childhood abuse by wealthy families, the kind of abuse that hid behind donations and galas and last names that opened doors. Jenna joined the board. Rosa volunteered every Saturday. Dr. Sato became the clinical director. And once a year, on March 14th, Cora sat in her apartment with her dog and her coffee and let herself feel it. The floor, the kick, the crack, the whisper. She didn't push it away. She didn't run from it. She just let it exist beside everything else she'd built since then. Because the silence hadn't protected her. The silence had been his weapon. He'd broken her ribs to buy it. He'd paid doctors and headmasters and lawyers to maintain it. He'd built an empire on the understanding that his daughter would never, ever talk. She talked, and the world listened.